incredibly dangerous and harmful chemicals without any concern or regulation. So, and yet we have to pay not to spray. It seems like it's a little bit upside down. Our steel cutouts, interesting story. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. We're looking into it. In Fuse, I just can't think of the exact date, but we went over to Scotland and competed in the World Porridge Championship. I didn't even know there was a World Porridge Championship. John Gilchrist, who's a local food reviewer, and his wife, Catherine Caldwell, entered the World Porridge Championship, and they, when I said we went over, they went over with our oats and competed, and actually won the specialty division of the World Porridge Championship. So that's a little feather. We have our rolled oats, of course, the Power Grains hot cereal, muffin and pancake mix, which we talked about. So the elephant in the room is always the 2013 flood. We had bought our building in 2012, spent 7 months renovating it. We had moved in and had been occupying the new building for about 6 months when the flood happened in High River. And this is our building here. Penny and I, on the morning of June 21st, had gotten on a plane and we were flying to Toronto. Highwood Crossing had been named one of the top 20 artisan food producing companies in Canada. And so we were going down to the awards ceremony. So we drove to the airport that morning. It was raining cats and dogs. I had gone to university out on Vancouver Island and was used to heavy rain, and I had reflected to Penny as we were driving out. I said, wow, I haven't seen this kind of rain since I was out on the island. We got on the plane, of course, turned our cell phones off. 4 hours later, landed in Toronto, turned our cell phones on, and I literally had 50 text messages and a number of missed calls and emails. And apparently we had neglected to tell our 2 grown daughters that we were leaving. We're going to be away. They knew that we had won this, but we hadn't exactly told them when we were leaving. So they thought that we had been washed. They weren't able to get a hold of us. High River had been evacuated. We weren't answering our cell phones. They thought we'd been drowned. Anyway, just couldn't believe, like, 4 hours ago we left and everything was fine. How is this possible? So we said we'll get back on a plane and we'll fly back home. And they said, well, at this point everything was up in the air. Wasn't even sure whether the airport in Calgary was open, and highway number 2 was closed. Our friends and family and staff said, stay where you are. At least you've got a place to stay. So our building in High River was flooded. Our home at the farm was flooded, and 50 acres of farmland was flooded. So we were in Toronto living it up, eating and drinking, and it didn't have the same festive spirit as it could have. Throughout all this, I can't stress enough how wonderful our team and everybody at Highwood Crossing was. Penny and I were kind of in a daze throughout this whole process, understandably, and they sort of rallied around and said, we need to do this. We need to get back. We've got customers out there who are wanting our products. We need to get back in business. So what we did, after having just moved in to this new building, we moved back to the farm, to that our original small little building on the farm, the 1,600 square foot facility, and we operated out of there for 18 months. So I think we were down, Pat, for about a month. We weren't shipping orders, but then we were back up and at 'em. But it took, almost 18 months for us to get everything put back together and move back to High River. This was just when we finally got into the building. Of course, High River, they had, the town was evacuated for 2 weeks, so no one was allowed back in. So when we did get back in, you know, this is kind of what we were faced with. This is a picture at the farm, just you know, showing us loading some grain out of the bins, and it's sort of a you know, a sunset, sort of a stylish shot. We get, as I mentioned, lots of different visitors at the farm. We're right on the river, so we have lots of birds and deer, and we saw a moose a couple of weeks ago. I went out one morning, and this little fellow was sitting on the stump by the door. Our philosophy, or my philosophy, has always been go where you're loved, and certainly that relationship. There's no better example of that than the relationship we have with Community Natural Foods. You've been a great supporter of ours from day one, and we certainly appreciate that. So I don't have anything else. That's leaves us you know, a few minutes for questions if there are any. If not, we can just you know, talk quietly amongst ourselves for 20 minutes. Pat's question was, can we press the hemp that we're growing into oil? That is certainly our intention and hope. As I said earlier, the hemp is a totally new undertaking for us, and it's a different crop to grow. So we'll see how it does this year. I was checking it yesterday, and it's still quite green. So we're hoping that it starts to ripen here quickly. It's a plant that is sensitive, like all plants, but it's hypersensitive to light and hours of light. So from all the research that I've done, it tells me that as the days get shorter, the plant rushes to ripen. So it's photosensitive to light. So it realizes that its time is drawing to an end, and that it better get busy and make these seeds. So we're hoping that one of the products that we'll be able to start offering is cold pressed hemp oil. And also we will be doing hemp hearts, and including the hemp in some of our products going ahead. So there might be, a new hemp granola or something like that. But yeah, it's certainly our intention to be using the hemp that we grow in various ways. Absolutely, if we can get it to grow. Hi.
How many people do you actually have working for you? Because I'm pretty sure you and Penny aren't out there
Yeah.
every day by yourself.
Yeah. Well, on top of all of this, I had a heart attack in February of this year, so I've been kind of away from the operation for the last 5 or 6 months. And prior to having this cardiac event, I would have had a tough time being away from work for a week at a time, because I'm very important, and nobody can do it the way I can do it. But one of the things that I learned is that we've got, I learned again, is that we have an amazing team, and they have taken over and so many people have said, you know, if we didn't know that you had been sick and been away, we wouldn't have known at all if there, you know, that there was any sort of change. So to answer your question specifically, how many people do we have? We have 4 full-time people, and then we have an elastic workforce that comes in as required. So, for example, we got this big takeover project from you folks, and Ron gave us a big order. So we've been able to, you know, call on our members at large to come in, so we can expand up to about 12 people. So just depending on and it changes on the day of the week. We have one lady that's been with us for over 13 years, and all she does is bake granola. So she's a, you know, granola specialist, so she comes in, bakes granola, and that's pretty much all she does. We have on Tuesdays is a packaging and filling day, so we work with a local non-GMO, non-government organization, NGO. We work with a local NGO, thank you. Got GMO on the brain. NGO that works with people with disabilities. And so they come in and help us on Tuesdays with packaging on the line. So they'll help with labeling and doing different things. So we'll have four people come in from AIM, Advocacy in Motion, and so they'll join our 4 people, and so then we'll be up to 8. We've got one lady that just drives trucks and does deliveries for us. We have one of the fellows that helps us with the farming. He'll come in, and so everybody's cross-trained. Everybody can do the other person's job, and so it's just kind of works like that. But some days, you know, there might be 4 people there. Some days, 12. Lisa,
Yes.
in the front row.
Do you drive the combines and the tractors?
I do, but I tell people that I spend about 1% of my time on the tractor and about 99% of my time on the telephone. Although I grew up on this farm, and it's been in my family for 120 some years, I really am not a farmer. You know, it's a bit of a kind of like a movie set, you know. I put up this thing. I went off to university and, you know, did that thing and worked off the farm for a number of years. So I came back to farming later in my life, in my 40s. So there are lots of people out there that know farming way better than I do. I know marketing and promotion and sales really well. So I tend to, again, go where I'm loved. I do the things that I know how to do. It was interesting, though, when I was coming to work in the city, if I made a mistake on a Tuesday, I could generally fix it by the end of the week, or certainly by the following Tuesday. You know, I could, if it was a real bad mistake, it might take me 2 weeks to fix it. With farming, when I make a mistake, it takes me years and years to do it. And you really don't have, when you think of a farmer, you know, they might have 40 times to try it. You know, it's once a year, you know, and if you screw up that time, then you go, geez. So you don't, you know, you don't get that many chances. It's not like every day you can change it. For example, a number of years ago, we had a neighbor that was raising chickens, and he was telling us about this great chicken manure. And as organic farmers, we're always looking for you know, approved nutrient sources. So he assured us that this chicken manure was well composted and that there was no weed seeds in it and everything. And so he brought it over, and we spread it on a field, and we're very excited to see the results. But much to our disappointment and surprise, there were still lots of weed seeds in the manure, and they hadn't been killed by the composting process. And still to this day, that field we struggle with. You can see the patch where we spread this chicken manure, and it still is weedy, and I try to deal with it every year, and it just it's been a huge problem. And I don't know that in my lifetime if I will ever be able to rectify this mistake that I made 12 years ago. So it's you really have to be have to be mindful of what you're doing and know what you're doing. So that's yeah.
Tony, besides hemp that you were looking at, is there anything else that you're thinking of bringing to market?
Yeah, we are. The question is, are there any other crops that we're looking at bringing to market, or new products we're looking to bring to market? We're really close where our farm is situated. We're really close to the foothills and to the Rocky Mountains. So if we're lucky, on a good year, we'll have a 100-day growing season, so 100 frost-free days. Lots of years were 90 days or 95 days. So even going a little bit further east to say Strathmore, they'll have 110 or 115 frost-free days. So that they really have a much larger selection of crops that they can grow. We grow good grass. It's the ground wants to grow grass. It's not especially heavy soil. It's light, a little bit light and sandy. So it's not necessarily well suited to a lot of crops, and it's hard because being organic, one of the few tools that we have in our toolbox to deal with weeds is cultivation. So whereas again the people who are using toxic rescue agriculture, conventional farmers, they can go in and spray if they've got the chicken manure weed problem. They go in, they spray that. They spray it out and the weeds are killed and they can deal with it. The only way we can deal with it is through our rotations and through cultivation. But because our soil is light and sandy, we don't want to cultivate it too much because then it blows. So it's a real fine balance. So the same can be said about the crop selection that we grow. There's some crops that just we don't have a long enough growing season. Red Fife wheat, for example, the big buzz about Red Fife wheat. Slow Food has picked it up, and it's one of the heritage varieties of wheat in Canada. But it doesn't have a long enough. We don't have a long enough growing season to grow Red Fife wheat where we're at, and so this is one of the reasons that wheats were crossbred to reduce the growing season. So you can grow 100-day wheat. But you just go a little bit east to Strathmore, and they have a long enough growing season that they can grow it. So that's why we're excited about hemp, because it's a new crop that we think we can grow there. Camelina is another crop that we think we can grow there. We haven't tried it, but it's got the potential. We grow faba beans, which we use as a green manure plow down. So faba beans are a legume, obviously, and they fix nitrogen from the air. So again, with the soil building, we plant crops like that: sweet clover, faba beans, lentils, different crops that fix nitrogen. And before harvesting them, so they'll grow up. They'll fix nitrogen on their roots, and then we'll go in and plow that back into the soil to feed the soil, feed the microbia in the soil, and really it's at the end of the day it's all about the soil for us. So, Lisa.
So you mentioned Slow Food.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about the award that you got from Slow Food Canada not too long ago?
Well, thank you for that. Nice to have a shill in the front row to throw you, lob you stories. We were named Canadian Food Heroes by Slow Food Canada, and it was a great honor. We went down to Nova Scotia to receive the award, and yeah, Slow Food has been an amazing organization. We've been involved with it for many years, both locally and internationally, and it's kind of funny farming the way we do, where we do, where all of our neighbors look at us as being kind of different, and we are. I embrace that. But when we went in 2004, we were asked to go over to Italy, to Terra Madre, with Slow Food, and it was the first international gathering where they brought together 5,000 food producers from all over the world. So Penny and I were asked to go and represent this part of the world in Turin, Italy, and it was so neat. They literally brought people together from all over the world: fishers, farmers, cheese makers, beer makers, anyone involved in making or growing food. And it was the first time that we had ever felt like what we were doing wasn't unusual and weird, you know, and that really the way that we traditionally farm over here is the exception as compared to how the rest of the world farms. So yeah, it was sort of a eureka moment for us with Slow Food. And then I know Lisa, you've been to Terra Madre as well, and it's I'm sure an equally amazing experience for you as well. So yeah, a Slow Food hero. I don't know, it's a Canadian food hero. It's a tough one to get your head around. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming out. I'm sure all of you had to get up as early as I did. So we're excited about this promo coming up for the next 3 weeks. Anything that we could do to help you, let us know. Our website has lots of recipes. So thanks again.